I think unfortunately the lasting legacy of this is that it is pointed to as one that kicked off the torture porn genre, where this was a favorite movie of Eli Roth. There's been, which led directly into him making Hostel, which was a big one of those movies. And I am willing to listen to the 20 years later takes on the torture porn era, lionizing it as being underrated or misunderstood or whatever. Or I saw something today where it was talking about it was an unfair label because what it was doing was bringing horror movies into the realism of a post 9/11 world or something like that. I'm like, oh sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I don't have the PhDs to argue with that one. So
yeah,
fine.
like is what they're doing in Hostel really that much different than what they were doing in Cannibal Holocaust? I don't know. But yeah, I kind of, it bums me out when this gets lumped in. I mean, Miike is an extreme director. Like, this is not the only movie he's done with a fucked up scene.
No,
in it. Like, a lot of them.
Ichi the Killer is just an entire fucked up scene for the whole movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And he famously, when Showtime was doing the Masters of Horror series in the mid 2000s, they're getting all these famous horror directors to do 1 hour episodes of television. They hired him and they said, do whatever you want.
Oh no.
Could not air it because it was so over the top and insane. I have yet to see it. I would like to see it at some point, but I don't know how easy it is to find at this point because it was so intense that they could not put it on TV.
I am not surprised.
Yeah. So he has a reputation.
Yes.
But this movie overall, I think, is so much more thoughtful than a lot of the movies that were inspired by it.
Yes.
I think unfortunately, like a lot of these types of things, whether it's this or the influence of The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen on comic books, I think people took the wrong things from it.
Yes.
Like they said, oh, blood and guts, intense, really awful torture scenes. Awesome. Let's do that. A bunch of that. Oh, superheroes that are all dark and brooding and hyper violent. I understand what these are about. Let's do more of that. You always see people end up taking they're taking the flash, but they're not taking the substance.
Yeah.
And I think this movie has a lot more substance than probably many people give it credit for, given its reputation.
Yes, I think it has a reputation for being so shocking and so gory and so violent and so horrifying. And in a weird way, I mean, it is in some ways, there are some really gross out scenes in this. There's a, torture sequence, I would call it. But if you've watched a movie like Saw or Hostel or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes, or like, you know what I mean? Like any Hills Have Eyes, like any of those sorts of like movies that came out in that like early to mid 2000s era, this can seem almost downright tame.
Honestly, as we were watching it, I mean, that sequence still works really well. But if you kind of take a step back, the stuff you're actually seeing, they've probably done on TV at this point. Like in The Walking Dead, probably something similar has happened.
Oh yeah.
The thing that makes it so horrifying, because I was like, this isn't actually as bad as I remember it.
Yeah, it's not as like graphic.
Yeah, it's still pretty graphic.
It's still
don't get me wrong.
No, yeah.
But it's not quite as bad as I remembered.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time watching this, like with my hand over my mouth the entire time, going like, "Oh my god!" And the reason that it works like that isn't the gore; it's everything that brought you to that point.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.